Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show that shall not be named, where I do a drawing and attempt to explain my thought process, and hopefully that's beneficial. Let me know. Today I decided to draw a cybernetic snail. So I've got a snail pulled up on the computer here on the internet, and I'm using it as a reference and loosely basing a pencil sketch on that. I'm just going to go through and, get all the shapes right before I start to add in the imagination stuff. And yeah, here I'm changing the shell a little bit just because I wanted it to be that kind of cone-shaped shell. I don't know. I think they look cool. Here I'm adding in the cybernetics equipment with kind of a sketching but also automatic drawing type of technique, I guess. Just making it up by kind of blanking out partially, but also drawing shapes. I alternate back and forth between the two techniques quite a bit. So, like the big sphere shape will be intentional, and like following the contour with those lines will be intentional. But then where I'm just drawing in like little random lines and the stuff I call greeblies or gibbets or whatever, that's all kind of just blanked out automatic drawing type stuff. Just doodle it in. And then, just piling up shapes on top of him to kind of get that, I don't know, like I'm calling it cybertech type looking stuff. Cybertech, cybernetics, whatever you want to call them. And then, here I'm starting on the fountain pen. This is a fine nib with platinum carbon ink. And I'm just tracing out the outline and adding in little, more little gibbets and contour lines and stuff like that as I go. And I'm just imagining like the contour of the shell, the shape of that shell kind of arching down in the front. And then there's a few, how I kind of structured the cybernetics was with like three kind of curved cylinders come jutting upward out of the shell. And then there's a sphere kind of sitting on top of that. And then a bunch of small cylinders just kind of poking out in somewhat random directions. I kind of had a composition in mind, so it's not completely random. I wanted the cybernetics to kind of come up and come out of that frame I drew around the whole thing and just poke out a little bit. I like to do that. I like to draw that frame almost like a comic book panel. And I like to have the subject matter and stuff like that coming out of it a lot of the time, because I think it kind of makes it look a little more 3D than it would if it was just kind of floating in space. And sometimes I like to experiment with the shape of the border there too. And I think I'm going to start doing that in some future videos once I'm done with the sketchbook, because the sketchbook's kind of small and it kind of limits the, amount of, it limits how weird you can get with that shape. So as you start getting too crazy with it, you start running out of room really quickly. But on a larger sheet of paper, you can get pretty nuts with it and get some interesting results. But yeah, I'm coming through doing all the contouring there, and then starting with the hatching here. This is the extra fine fountain pen with Noodler's black. I like to use the Noodler's black in the extra fine because it's semi-translucent, so it has sort of a gray. A little bit of a, gray line, I guess. I've had a lot of people mention in the comments that to use like Noodler's Lexington Gray is a good one, and I'm going to try it eventually. I'll get around to it. I just haven't, I haven't had the extra ducats to throw at a bottle of ink beyond the stuff I bought for the glow-in-the-dark ink videos. I should be purchasing some new inks and stuff like that here soon, so stay tuned. And yeah, here I'm coming through just hatching and following the contour, imagining the light source at somewhere like up and to the right slightly, so maybe 2 o'clock. And I'm just hatching, where I think the shadows would be, kind of making it up as I go along. It's a little bit forgiving because a lot of this stuff is just from imagination, so if I hatch the wrong side of it or something, I can just kind of fudge it, and nobody will ever know, and I'll never tell. But yeah, and then as I do this stuff, I'll come through and I add little contour lines, and also little dinguses or whatever, gibbets, greeblies, whatever they're called. Just little, they're almost the same thing as contour lines. They're just like, if a contour line was like the line on a printed circuit board, I guess, or if it was a rectangle or a circle or whatever. A dot. Sometimes I just do a little, stippling here and there to just give it kind of a weathered, pitted look. Yeah, and a lot of that stuff while I'm making it up, it's just kind of zoned out, just following some edges or whatever. Automatic drawing type stuff. It's not full automatic drawing, it's like partial automatic drawing, I guess. I'm still like wielding it with intentionality. I don't know if I'm repeating myself. These voiceovers are starting to blend together in my brain. Yeah, here I'm hatching the slug body, his sluggy body, with some hatchy hatches, and just trying to make it look like there's little shadows where his lumps would be. Or maybe a color pattern texture sort of thing. I don't know. And then, hatching the light source in on the antennas there. And then his skirt. His, I don't know my snail anatomy, so whatever that thing's called. His foot. His big toe. I decided to do some cross-hatching on this, but use it very sparingly, so that's what I'm coming through with here, is the little cross-hatching in the kind of darker areas, just trying to not go overboard with it, because I feel like a lot of times I have a tendency to get a little nuts with the cross hatching and trying to keep it as less than a third of the overall value, if that makes sense. So a third or less. You know, a third highlight, a third midtone, a third dark. It's kind of how I like to break it up. Now, obviously, there'll be like gradients in there and like transitions from like really dark to like kind of dark, but just as an overall guideline, that 1/3 highlight, 1/3 medium, 1/3 dark is kind of it's a good balanced place to be with your values. And then, yeah, I'm just bulking up the peripheral outline here a little bit to make it, you know, pop out a little bit. And then hatching some texture into the ground here. I was just imagining lumpy clumps of lump dump, of dirt or whatever. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's interesting to watch, right? I hope it's interesting to watch. Yeah, and then using that kind of negative space hatching technique, you know, where I'm more paying attention to the negative space than the actual shape of the positive space, and that gives it kind of that bright highlight, almost like blown out highlight in a photograph or something sort of look. That's what I'm going for anyways. I think it works. And yeah, just tuning up those edges. And then for the border, I decided to make it sort of an exhaust emission and apparently not draw it while it's on screen, so we don't get to see that part. But yeah, and then I'm just hatching, you know, some texture into that to give it a little bit of dimension. Kind of like clouds, but a little darker than the clouds. So, you know, filled it in pretty solid with hatching. It's supposed to be, you know, his exhaust or whatever. So I wanted to make it kind of darker. I have a fun idea for the border. Instead of just like an outline, have it be something, you know, a part of the picture, I guess. And then, yeah, I'll come through and just darken up the edges that go underneath the subject just to give it a little more pop. You can see that works really nicely. And yeah, that's going to about finish it up. Thanks for watching. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you to my patrons on Patreon. If anybody's interested, all the links and stuff are down in the description. And I will see you in the next one. All right. Bye.